Nancy Pelosi, 5 years ago, voted for the Border Fence Security Act. As part of that was about 167 miles of physical barrier wall. Nancy Pelosi says today that a wall is immoral. Was a wall not immoral 5 years ago when Barack Obama was the president, and it's immoral now that it's Donald Trump's idea to create some sense of physical barrier? Help me understand how Nancy Pelosi puts that genie back in the bottle.
The thing that's causing Pelosi problems is that she has a party where we have a lot of new members, many of whom are further to the left than she is, or certainly to the left.
I would second that.
And she has to find a way to keep these people unified behind her. And from the analysis that I have seen, the one thing that is keeping Democrats behind her is opposition to the wall. And so this gives her the reason to take that position. Now, she would probably say, well, that was 167 miles. What Trump wants to do is to have this enormous barrier across the entire United States border between the U.S. and Mexico, some 2,000 miles long. And that is not what I was supporting.
So a 167-mile wall is not immoral. A 2,000-mile wall is immoral.
Well, I'm just telling you what her position is.
Would you agree that she's got herself in a very difficult position by voting in 5 years ago the way she did and pontificating the way she is now?
Right now, among Democrats, no, she doesn't. Democrats are solidly behind her, even if you look at the poll numbers. And indeed, if you look at the poll numbers in general, the majority of Americans are blaming Trump for this shutdown because Trump himself took ownership of it. That gives her additional reason to take this position. But this would not be the first time we've seen a politician take a position on an issue and then change his or her mind and take an opposing position because of the political winds or what is politically expedient. And as you said on the radio, about a half hour ago, you sometimes took positions because you looked and said, what will get me reelected?
That's absolutely. Political expediency has always been a part of the recipe in American politics. I don't want to shift gears and ask you to give me your handicapping of the Democrat field as we speak. Kamala Harris announced yesterday Bernie Sanders will end up being the centrist in this field at some point in time, and he's a self-avowed socialist. Your take on those beginning to line up to compete in the Democrat primary and eventually, face the president in a general election in 2 years?
Well, number one, we have a lot of women, far more women running than we've seen in the past.
Scares me, but keep going.
We also have minorities running. Julian Castro, Hispanic. We have Kamala Harris, just named yesterday, daughter of a father from Jamaica and a mother from
very compelling
East India.
story. I mean,
yeah.
Very and a very impressive lady. And I think she's wrong on everything, but she's impressively wrong.
Well, I think we look at those individuals, the list of people who are running so far, and those who probably have the best chance of winning, I think Kamala Harris is among the top. Even many Democrats and even people in Massachusetts aren't too keen on Elizabeth Warren running. Julian Castro maybe has a good chance among many Americans and obviously among the Latino community, but we'll have to see. Right now, I would I'd say Harris has the best chance, but there's still such a long ways to go.
Do you find it a bit odd that every day a Democrat apologizes for a stance they formerly took? Biden had to apologize yesterday of where he once was in criminal for law enforcement. Harris had to apologize and where she stood on criminal reforms. Let me think here. Elizabeth Warren's had to apologize for a couple of things. Kirsten Gillibrand had to apologize for, I think Tulsi Gabbard was the one that apologized for being a supporter of traditional marriage.
Right.
Scott, my hope and burning desire is that I'm right and that they try to appeal to the fringe that is the loudest voice in the Democrat Party today, what I call the radical left, and take positions and stances that are out of the American mainstream and watch them try to, whoever wins that free-for-all, try to watch them pivot back to the mainstream of American politics.
But one of the things that's interesting about all of this is you have Ocasio-Cortez calling for a 70% tax rate on the richest Americans. And a poll recently came out found the majority of Americans actually favor that. I was personally surprised to see that. Now, where these individuals will eventually take, what their positions will be eventually, I don't know. What I personally hope happens is that these individuals find some way to begin moving more toward the center. That, I think,
the base is not going to let that happen,
and
Scott.
that's the problem. And it's same true for the Republicans as well. They've got, both parties need to find a way to attract independents, to attract moderates. And even if, let's say, we get somebody who's more on the left side of the political spectrum for the Democrats running as the presidential candidate, I hope that person will consider someone more moderate for a vice presidential running mate, because I think that would give at least some chance of drawing in some of these moderates and independents. One of the reasons why Bill Clinton did so well is he had that ability to attract those people who are more centrist, while the Republicans were focusing more on those to the right. And I think that's where the Democrats' strength would be if they can do that.
Does it concern you, some of the positions and stances and articulations that Democrat candidates will have to stand on in this Democrat primary?
My biggest concern is, and this kind of ties in with kind of answers your question, my biggest concern is that we're going to see candidates on both sides taking positions that are going to appeal to bases to the far right and to the far left. And all that is going to do is add to the polarization already taking place in this country. I would like to see us become, once again, moving more toward the center, finding that moderate middle if at all possible. I think right now we're going through a period of American history where this polarization is so strong and so entrenched it'd be hard to break out of. I can only hope that at some point the American people say, hold on a second, this is not what we asked for.
What do you make of Trump's compromise to the Democrats, and the Democrats saying it's a non-starter before they ever receive the unknown compromise?
Because it was a non-starter. I mean, there was stuff in there that clearly would be unacceptable to the Democrats. The $5.7 billion for the wall was Democrats made sure they will not have said they will not support. 3 years for people who are protected under DACA, that's it. But also don't forget that even people on the right are attacking him. Ann Coulter came out against his proposal. So Trump's proposal is not only disfavored by those on the left, but even by those on the far right.
But do you approve of the answer-response non-starter? Why not some alternative compromise? Why not say, no, 3 years, maybe 5 years? Maybe we can talk a little bit about amnesty. Maybe we can, can build half the distance of wall you won't build. Why a non-starter? I can tell you what my opinion is, because Democrats want open borders. Democrats don't want to secure the southern border because Democrats believe that illegal immigrants equal welfare recipients equal Democrat voters. That's what I believe. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, the reason why I would argue you're wrong is that walls themselves aren't the answer. There are other methods that can and must be used.
You're Jewish, right?
Yes.
Israel built a wall, right?
143 miles.
And the wall works, right?
Hold on a second. Even analysts have said the wall in itself does not work. There have to be other methods used as well. They, for instance, use technology to keep track of who...
In concert with a wall, with a physical barrier.
And don't forget that the terrain is much different than what we're talking about here in the United States. It's much easier to protect 143 miles than it is 1,500 or 2,000 miles.
But Israel built a wall, and the majority of people who live in Israel agree the wall has been very much to their advantage.
In Israel, I would say that is the case, but I think you're comparing apples and oranges.
Okay, fair enough. Last question, most important question. I believe everything Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says because she's kind of pretty, she's fairly fit, and she's a little bit intriguing until she gets that wild look on her face, and she freaks me out a little bit when she does that. But she said yesterday at an MLK event as guest speaker that climate change would end the world in 12 years. What do you plan on doing in the next 12 years, since that's all we've got left to live on the planet?
You just gave me an opportunity to plug my newest book,
okay,
which is actually on this very issue. It's called The Environment in International History. It just came out last month. Climate change will not end the world in 12 years.
So she's wrong.
She's wrong about that. But climate change is something that we must take a very serious look at, because it is causing problems not only for other countries, but even for the United States.
Are you arguing man-made climate change or just climate change in general, with the caveat that we're not sure how much man is contributing to this ever-growing problem, if it is indeed a problem?
The fact that we are at over 400 parts per million with regard to carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which does not leave the atmosphere very easily and contributes to climate change. The fact that we are seeing trends we have not seen before in human history. I think man-made climate change is indeed, or humans are definitely a prime cause for the climate change that is taking place.
We may debate that after next Tuesday when you come in. Okay. I will say this to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. It's kind of like, LBJ and JFK. I mean, it'd take her a week. She's got her an AOC. But the question I'd ask her, with all due respect, what in the hell can we do in 12 years to stop it? I mean, if you're telling us, as the most informed congressman from New York, that you're so enlightened and woke and aware of what the climate is and what human beings have done to influence or manipulate the climate, what in the world can we do to stop the inevitable? I mean, if we've only got 12 more years left on Earth, in my humble judgment, there's nothing we can do. I mean, we're too far gone. Just play the fiddle out. Have a good time. Live your life. And just know that AOC said in 12 years, we're all out of here. Will she be old enough to run for president in 12 years?
She's 27 now.
29.
So 29.
That'll be 35?
So, well, 12 years. If she's 29, she'll be 41. So
she could run.
Yeah.
Okay, that may be the reason she gave the 12 years to force people to change that, because she's all about changing things, change the minimum age for being a president. But she's kind of pretty.
Yeah, the only thing I think of is maybe she's referring to the idea that if we don't make major changes within 12 years, we're going to go over the edge and nothing will stop.
I'll tell you what she's referring to.
Al Gore said that about 20 years ago.
Yeah. I'll tell you what she's referring to. She's referring to the fact that she don't know a damn thing of what she's talking about. That's what she's referring
proving
to.
That.
And she's proving that every time she opens her mouth and moves her lips. But she's interesting, and she's very intriguing, and she is, and I've said this, Scott, she is a political force to be considered, because the first thing Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer do when they close the door is question one another, what are we going to do with her? I mean, what can we do with her? Can you put her on some committee? Can you give her some assignment? Can we build a statue for her? Can we do something to keep her kind of in check? Because she's a political rebel. I mean, she's not Donald Trump, but there's some similarities. She's a political rebel, and you've got to be careful how you deal with political rebels. Despite her lack of understanding, she is an influential political figure as we speak. And I said that last week, and you kind of looked at me like, nah, I think you're way off. But no, I'm not. No, she is to be dealt with in some capacity or manner. Who are we talking about today?
AOC.
And she's very topical. And once again, she's kind of pretty. And if I were in Kentucky and had the chance to vote for Ashley Judd or Mitch McConnell, I'm vote for Ashley Judd. Because she just looks a lot better than Mitch McConnell. That's how serious I am about my casting about it. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Good seeing you. Scott Kaufman, Dr. Scott Kaufman, History Chair, Francis Marion University. We'll take a break. We'll be back after the break. QAT is our sponsor. Visit their website, teamqat.com.